your time with Pete Peterson and maybe Area 51, if there's anything that you can reveal.
Mhm.
Any specific questions?
I guess I was wondering. I know that you approached the Air Force in grade 8,
Mhm.
and then sort of worked on from there. And I know that there's a thing saying that by the age of 23 that you pretty much had everything that you wanted achieved. So what does that mean basically?
Okay, well, so the question comes up every so often: has Stavatti built an airplane? And this you
Yeah.
see in the media, and there's been articles. And the interesting thing is that usually these articles are written by people that haven't actually asked me the question. They've been
That's right.
repeating
Exactly.
they've been repeating this attack that actually came out of a blogger who may or may not have been working for Boeing when we were dealing with the early days of the TX program.
Wow.
And that gets into some interesting discussions, but we were going pretty intense head to head with Boeing on the TX, which was a trainer for the Air Force. And now we're going head to head with them on the undergraduate jet training system, for which they released the 4th or 5th RFI on Monday, the 31st. So we're going up against them. And so we're the underdog. Boeing has their T7 and we're offering our SM-31. But which hasn't been built yet. I mean, I'll openly state, no, we haven't prototyped the SM-31. We're working on that pretty intensely. And part of the issue, of course, is when you get into any kind of military aircraft, they get expensive pretty quick.
Yeah.
And it's not really something you can build in your backyard or your basement or in your garage. They require big facilities like the one depicted behind me. So we have a great big facility where we can build we can build our 920 airliner here. So it's a good size facility, and we have space to do that. But the other issue is, how do you define Stavatti? And so I founded Stavatti Corporation in 1994. And then we founded Stavatti Aerospace now, which is really more focused towards aerospace in 2019.
Oh,
And
wow.
the reason we did that was we wanted to have an aerospace only focused company, which Stavatti Corporation was getting into a lot of other things. But so we wanted aerospace focused, and we also wanted to allow it to go public, like have an IPO. And
Yes.
have a clean sheet of paper and really focus more on commercial things. And so when you look at what Stavatti Aerospace is doing, like our number one project is this airliner. The other military projects are great too, but it's really more focused on the airliner.
Yeah.
And the airliner, coming out with a new airliner to compete with Boeing on the airliner front is not something that is welcomed. It should be, but it's just not the politically correct thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Worse than competing with Lockheed on jet fighters.
Wow.
And of course, in the United States, there really isn't any other airliner manufacturer than Boeing. We used to have McDonnell Douglas. Lockheed used to build an airliner, the L-1011, but they don't anymore.
Yeah.
You have us getting in the business. And then you have other companies too, like Net Zero is another company that has a blended wing design, and there's another blended wing design company too, and they get the same kind of reaction. They say, they call us crazy because we want to build airliners. but there's a lot of need. I mean, right now the airliner market is tremendously huge. It's estimated at being a $4 trillion market over the next 20 years.
Wow.
I mean, you have companies like Indigo Airlines in India that have ordered hundreds of airliners, and so.
Wow.
So it's a big business. And so Stavatti Aerospace Limited of Wyoming, which was incorporated in 2019. No, it hasn't. Well, I should clarify that. Up until last year, it hadn't built an airplane. Now we're selling drones and things like that. So we are building flying machines, and you can order one today. So that worry that we're not building planes is not true. But getting back to the early history, which really started in 1989, 1990. That's where we submitted an unsolicited proposal, and we received funding to build a flying machine, and it flew, and it was under a multi-role fighter program.
Wow.
And we have a military, you call it a special access uh, agreement that does not allow us to disclose certain things, but that was not under Stavatti Corporation. This was a predecessor to that.
Okay.
And so when you get into what happened with Stavatti Corporation, our program was under the multi-role fighter program. And there was an Aviation Week article about it, and they said that the Air Force funded a private initiative to build a prototype. It was a 1993 article, I believe. And but it didn't go anywhere. And so what happened with the multi-role fighter program? Well, it got canceled under the Clinton administration.
Right.
And back in the 90s, not without getting into all the details, you had a variety of projects that were in the Air Force and Navy that were supposed to happen. Like we had the AX, which was going to be the Avenger 2. That was the A-12.
Yep.
That ended up being canceled. You had a Navy Advanced Tactical Fighter, which was supposed to replace the F-14. It was either going to be like a Navy F-22 with swing wings or something else. That never happened. The Navy never got their F-14 replacement.
Yeah.
You were going to have an F-16 replacement by 1996, and that fell under the multi-role fighter program. Presumably, that may also replace the F-18. And so our focus was, let's build, I like to say it was an F-16 replacement. It was really more of an F-18 replacement.
Okay.
So we worked on that program. It got canceled, and then the multi-role fighter program became it started out, I guess, the Common Affordable Lightweight Fighter. Then it became the Joint Advanced Strike Technology Demonstrator. Then it became the Joint Strike Fighter. This is all over a period of time from about 1993 to 1996 or 97.
Okay.
Now, we submitted what we had done under the Joint Strike Fighter program. We wanted to be included in that. However, ours did not take off and land vertically. It was only a conventional takeoff and landing airplane, so it wasn't included in that DARPA program.
Right.
So in 1994, in response to that cancellation, I founded Stavatti Corporation. And the idea was we're gonna raise private money to develop this fighter further and get it into production commercially. Well, by the time we did all that, it became politically unpopular to challenge the Joint Strike Fighter program.
Wow.
And so we had submitted a letter to the Air Force in 1999. Well, actually, a request. Actually, let me back up a second. So the Air Force said maybe you can compete under EMD for the F-35, which will be free and open solicitation. But it wasn't. It was closed to Lockheed and Boeing.
Ooh.
And so that ended there. So what we've done is we've taken this whole legacy and we've repackaged it and followed on. We've continued on for 20 years now, and it seems forever. And that led to our Stelma project. So we have a stealthy single engine variable geometry fighter with canards. And the reaction, it's a different approach to stealth, because part of the problem with stealth technology, like you have with the F-117 or the F-22 or the B-2, is it's very focused on specific wavelengths and specific frequencies.
Yeah.
And they use planform alignment, and they use these different approaches, which work, but they only work over certain ranges. And so if you want something that is more stealthy than a B-2 or a F-117, you need to take a different approach, and you need to focus more on electromagnetism. You need to focus more upon having an active stealth approach rather than a passive approach.
Yeah.
And so that was really the force of the Stelma project. And so that was, kind of that history. Well, then in 94, there was an intelligence agency that said, hey, we really like what you did with this project earlier. Could you do something for us which embodies some of those technology elements for what became high altitude long endurance? So
Ooh.
that's high altitude, long endurance airplanes. So we kept busy with that for about a decade. And that remains classified to this day. There
Yeah.
isn't too much I can say about that. So when you ask about like Area 51, well, what was done there? Well, that's where some of this kind of work was done, and the Tonopah test range. And so,
Gotcha.
that's where I became involved in those things from really 1990 through the early 2000s. And of course, Pete Peterson had some connections in that.
Yeah.
Um, and he was a technologist, and part of that gets into material science, the scandium aluminum technology
Yeah.
in particular,
Hmm.
uh, a lot of the composites, advanced basalt fiber composites, using a lot of the Hexcel composites like IM10 and IM9 fiber. Uh, we had we're one of the, and it's not always done through us. You use a lot of different other companies to keep certain projects secret. Like you'd have another company order parts for you and make parts, and they'd come into you, but you have a buffer company. And so
Yeah.
through a buffer company, well, we were one of the first airplane companies to use XL-IM9 fiber,
Wow.
which is a high performance, high tensile strength graphite composite material
Yeah.
and non-carcinogenic composite material. So we learned a lot about composites. And that's why we're really shifting to the foam metal sandwich, because on a commercial level, composites are very good for special applications. But it's really difficult to affordably mass produce composites.
Right.
Uh, and it is just very challenging. So it's easier to make things out of metal, like hydropressing, and you
Yep.
can't stamp out composites like you can stamp out a car.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And this gets into the long discussion of why don't we see too many aluminum cars? Why don't we see too many composite cars that are mass produced by the automakers? And it's because, well, it's just difficult.
Yeah.
And so you end up with steel that's thicker and heavier, but you can stamp it out.